Welcome to the DMF. I'm Justin Younts. This is part two.
I'm sure you've seen that too. There's this hierarchy idea, you must have come across the person who they like the term director, that they don't really want to do the director's work. Like they like the idea of it. It's like people are like, "Oh, I'm a producer." But they don't really want to
Yeah.
do anything. They just want the title of producer, the title of that, and oh, not really
Yeah, I
done
mean there are like
anything.
there are all kinds of like different directors, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you've
yeah,
seen different, and like also
yeah,
because I've been the director many times, but I've also been the other
yeah,
person working on the crew so many other times. I've seen all kinds of stuff.
yeah.
But it's funny that you're saying that because like I think I even like how it works here and in Italy it's different because like for me, like as a director, I want to decide also like the shot, how it's gonna look like.
So more cinematography. Yeah,
like
yeah,
like it like and that's to me it's normal that is the director who decide does
yeah.
that does everything in that sense. Then the cinematographer does the lighting or like okay if you like the lens we should use this lens and different.
Yeah.
But to me either I work with the cinematographer on like how it's going to look like or but I already come with my own ideas how I
Yeah.
should look like because when you're the director you're envisioning like visually how it's going to look like
Yeah, you need
obviously.
to know. Yeah, I mean, that's Frances
Yeah.
McDormand said she likes to work with people who are going to be in the editing room because they know what the finished product is going to look like.
Yeah,
If you
what's
just
gonna look like. And
work
so
with a
I'm
director who's just like, hey, here's this is the cinematographer, you go set up the lights or whatever. It's like, but you need to know kind of like what it's gonna.
you
You
need
have
to
to
know
have some
what you
idea.
want, obviously, yeah. But
Yeah.
it was funny because I was reading this book about Antonioni, the Italian director, which I
Oh,
love. He's
really?
also from my region, and he
Yeah.
was saying that when he was going on set, he would say, "Okay, everybody out," and then he would play with the camera to see what kind of angles he wants, how he wants to do the movement and stuff like that. And so when I was telling that, a friend of mine who was my cinematographer for some like couple of music videos, she was like, "Oh, that's why you're like that." So I guess, I guess she's from Russia. So,
That's
but I guess maybe
funny.
it's not that normal that like the director
Oh.
is so hands-on, like knowing what they want. So
I think that's always good to know what you want. Sometimes it can be, difficult because, you get, but, it's as a director, you need to know, what you wanted to do. Otherwise, it's somebody else's vision now. It's no
yeah.
longer,
And that like I had to learn that's why I learned how to do everything because
yeah,
honestly, so when I went to that school, so like the cinema school in Rome,
yeah,
so we did the first month of classes, so we got an understanding of like camera, lighting, like just the basics, and then they told us, okay, now make a short movie. Like just
yeah.
like after the first month. So then of
Wow.
course they were bad and we were like in this historic place, so it's even harder to create a story for an historic place where obviously you don't have the tools to
Yeah,
make like a period type of piece.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
now
yeah.
of course they look very bad, all these shorts, but because like we just ended up just like we started by making mistakes because that's all it is. That's how
Yeah.
you learn by making mistakes. And obviously like there I learned like because then we had to work with our classmates and of course some of them want to be doing like cinematography, other directing, so but we all
Yeah.
ended up like having to do different roles. So but there I was like I don't know how to express like how
Yeah.
what I want, but because I was working with someone who relied on me, then I felt like, oh my gosh, my piece is terrible because like he expect me to know everything. But then I was like, but then the other director didn't know anything, but he was working with the cinematographer who didn't mind like
Yeah.
doing the work for him. So then I saw these two ways where there are some directors who know nothing, but they still get the job done
Yeah.
because they hired the right person. And then you
Yeah.
might have like some director that because they didn't have the right team, then you're
Yeah.
not going to get the good job done because you don't know how to communicate that. So that's where I decided like I need to learn what I want. In order to learn what I want, I need to learn all the other jobs. So so that's
It's
where I learned like because like in that school like first year was like you would do all the things like you would do sound, you would do camera.
yeah.
So and then the second year, the second half of the second year, you would actually pick like a major. But then I was lucky because no one wanted to do sound, and I don't like specializing in something. I like learning everything because that's just me. I just love knowing everything. So to pick one thing and just go for that the same way like forever, that doesn't work for me. But that's how most people actually function, and they're like, I'm gonna just like focus on one thing and become better in that. But I like learning everything.
You like doing everything. I like.
Yeah. So, but then because they didn't have anyone enrolling in sound, they put together the video editing and the sound major together. So I was like, oh, I'll pick that so I can learn two different things.
Yeah.
All at once. And because no one wanted to do sound, then I started doing the sound for other people, like both like filming and also learning how to do the editing. So I've been doing that 2 different times. So that's how for my miniseries, then I did everything by myself because I was like, if I have to pay someone to do it better than how I can do it, I would have to pay a lot of money. And there is no one that is going to do it for cheap. Then they're not going to be good if they accept to do it for cheap. So at that point, like I can do it better probably.
Yeah, if you look at it like, yeah, I paid somebody to do it, cheap, but like that's what I got was it's like, well, I can't show this to anyone.
Yeah, and it's like I can do it better, and then I would not pay money. So that's where like when I approached my mini series, I was not planning to do anything. I was just mad about
We're gonna get to that in just a minute. I wanted to talk though a little bit about your music videos and kind of how your ideas came from that. Like, just talk a little bit about your music videos.
Music videos, so it depends which one you're talking about. So I mean, I like music videos because like people my friend make fun of me because they say that I hate music. I love music, but I hate concerts. Like I don't like going to concerts. I don't like the crowds. I don't like their people singing the song. If I'm going to pay to the singer to sing, I want to hear them, not all everybody else like to sing. So
and it almost feels like political. You were talking about politics when you go to see it. It's like sometimes I want to hear songs that they might not want to hear. They just want to hear the hits or whatever. And I'm like, I kind of want to just hear this song that this B track.
Yeah.
Go away. We just want to hear hits.
Yeah, so I hate that part of I hate the music industry anyway, but I love music. But to me, it's like music is like my personal experience. I'm always singing, I'm always listening to music, but by myself. It's not something I want to share. But besides that, the background. So I love music videos because with music videos you can create stories, but without having to be forced to make them in a linear way. Like, with movies, as we were talking about, which I love it, everything has to make sense. But also to make sense, you need to do a lot of work behind the scene, and it costs money to make the story that makes sense. So when with music video, you can just create an atmosphere. You can just go from something that is in the present to the past and play with that.
You could be abstract.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be like going back to when I was, I guess, like doing experimental theater. Like you can do that. So you can still do stories, but in a way that it doesn't have to be linear, doesn't have to make sense. So you can just go with like.
So now moving on to This Is What New Yorkers Say. Let me just ask you first off, how did you come up with that title?
Because I mean, I was mad at what they did to Andrew Cuomo, obviously. Okay. So they like the media, obviously, they were not doing their due diligence. They were not asking the right question, and they were always talking about how there was this article that came out that was saying that 70% of New Yorkers wanted him to resign, and I was like, I don't believe this. I don't believe, and all the polls, of course. It's a poll. How many people they're going to ask? 300
that's
people.
The problem with polling is, we saw at the last election. The polling all showed this, and then
it's never true. Yeah.
And it doesn't come through. So it's like the polling needs to change to reflect this climate of the world that we're living in, and it seems like it's stuck in this archaic ideas. But it was an interesting title. I like it. It's really catchy. So what kind of made you want to decide to do this?
The project, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just mad. Like, I was like, he's not going to resign. He's not going to resign. And then he resigned. And I was
actually following politics closely at this. Were you living in New York at this time?
No, I never lived in New York.
Oh, you've never lived in New
I
York.
never
Oh,
lived
wow.
in New York. So like,
Wow.
but it was, I wanted to move to New York, and
Yeah.
I was still living like as a facility manager of a theater, but I was so tired of
This is
the
the
move,
Egyptian theater,
the
correct?
Egyptian theater.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was during COVID, and I was just like, I was feeling frustrated because like I was tired of the movie industry, of movies, because again, as I was saying, to me, movies are about like helping people in their lives. It's not
Yeah.
about the industry, it's not about looking cool, it's not about the glamour of it.
Well,
So
talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about your frustrations with the movie industry. That's
yeah, I mean,
really
like
important.
that's obviously it's a very fancy industry for so many
Yeah.
people. Again, when you film a movie, it's not that fancy, obviously, especially if you make like movies without budget. Like
Yeah.
one time we were doing a movie like in the middle of nowhere, there was not even a toilet, so we had to like do our business like in the middle of nowhere. Like so, it's not always fancy, obviously.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've interviewed assistant director. He was telling me about how they were doing this film called Crocodile, and they had a portage on, but they were out in like Mexico or whatever, and it was leaning, but there was also like spiders and
yeah.
scorpions coming out, and but the thing was leaning, so you would have to go to the bathroom. You'd fear for your life that the thing would tip over, and all these creatures would come onto you. So like, yeah, it's not always glamorous. You know, people think of it
Yeah.
like it's like, you know, especially for people that have to do the really hard work for the actors, it's very easy compared to what they have to do. They have to get up early. They have to find everything. And like I said, sometimes it's not glamorous. The porta john is got creepy
Yeah, I mean,
crawlies
my
all
first
over.
movie, the first movie I worked on, I was
Yeah.
the what do you call like the person carrying the monitor, like for the
Okay.
director
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
But it was like old technology, so it was like the CRT monitor, and it was this giant thing that was as tall as me, CRT monitor with like the recorder with the mini DV
So
in
like
it.
the video, so like the Video Village kind of
It
thing.
was the
Like you
full
bring
video
it.
village, and I had to carry that. And one time we were like in a forest, so there were all the roots of the trees coming out, and I had to by myself push that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not super fancy all the
Yeah.
time. So, but yeah, but then I was like, so I was working
Yeah.
in, and I love working in the movie theater. Honestly, it was great because, like in Italy, if you want to work with movies, the only way is you have to make movies. There
Yeah.
is no other real industry behind other way to do it. And working in a generic movie theater, it's not the same thing, obviously. But then the Egyptian theater was so different
Yeah.
because I mean they were doing like premieres over there. They were doing film festivals. There was like the gala event once a year was a fundraiser. So they were
Yeah.
giving like an award to like super famous person, like all the famous people in Hollywood. They got it pretty much. So so it was like a very different place where actually, and I love the environment of a movie theater. I always wanted to work in a movie theater because I just love being
Yeah.
inside of them. And so working at the Egyptian theater was great. And I found myself being the facility manager. So I was doing practical things while working the events,
Yeah.
obviously. So it was a mixture of like where I could put like my practical background into that, but also creative and planning and everything. And it was all about events there. So it was really great, and I loved it. But then during COVID, I just started feeling like, oh, yeah, we could do so many things with this movie theater, like to
Yeah.
help the community. Like there were still movie theater open, selling popcorn, so there would be a
Yeah.
place where people can still come and buy them, even if you don't make money. There were places like that. There were
Yeah.
places that could be a place where like you could get your vaccine. And they were not doing anything with the theater. Like, of course, at that point, they were in the process of selling it to Netflix, the theater.
Okay, so
So,
Netflix
so
owns this.
Netflix owned the Egyptian now, and like now they're managing and everything. So we were in that process. So I was part of that
That's a
transition.
dangerous thing to happen. I don't know if you've heard about the story of that. The theaters used to be owned by the studio, the movie studios, and
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
government came in and broke them up as they saw
yeah.
that monopoly. I don't
Yeah,
think
but then that rule expired. So
I know,
now
and
they
now
can
they're going
buy.
back to it, and I'm like, I don't have the same confidence with this government to break up the thing. They're gonna go and go, oh, this is making money for us.
Yeah.
Who care? It doesn't matter because what they saw was that this was gonna limit independent film hadn't really happened, but if that hadn't have happened, breaking that up, we wouldn't really have had the independent, film theaters and independent explosion of film that kind of happened in like the late 90s and, could probably say maybe in the 70s as well, so I don't know. I don't know how we got on there, but
No, but the expert Egyptian, and I was against the idea at the beginning. Before I was like, why are you selling the theater instead of like trying to make it work for yourself and giving it to Netflix like a big corporation?
And that's why they're showing Frankenstein right now. They own it. I was looking at that,
But now then I start dealing with the Netflix people and they're lovely. Like, so I'm really happy. Like after
it is a good thing. Okay,
it's a good thing. Yeah. Like I spent like a year and a half, I guess, 2 years probably, because I was still dealing with them after they started owning it, because then they did the renovation. So I left the theater when the renovation started, which was I think like it was more than a year after COVID started. So I think it was like May of 2021 when I left physically the Egyptian. But I was still working for the same company, but I just was not dealing with Egyptian anymore. But even that, like, so for like 2 years, I was dealing with Netflix people, and I was like meeting with them, showing them the place, teaching them everything about the place. And it's really better because those historic places, they cost a lot of money. And because the rules changed for the earthquake in Los Angeles, like they did like for 20 years since the Northridge, they did all their studies on how to make the buildings like safer for the earthquakes. So they came up with new standards. But now all the buildings had to go through some kind of retrofit, like not all the buildings, but the buildings that were in a specific way. So this one was a big concrete building. So it had to go through a big retrofit that would cost millions of dollars. And so a small company that was really struggling there, like with their bills, then they could not afford that. So selling to Netflix obviously saved the Egyptian and made sure that the standard would be done quicker, and so they did the renovation right away with that standard. But technically, for how the law is, you had like maybe a few years to get an estimate on stuff, but then you had like 20 years to get the theater in compliance. But then in like 20 years, the earthquake is going to come earlier than that probably. So it's like it's a very loose
that's
thing.
the problem I hear about in California is it's hard to get things done because there's so much red tape that they have to go through. You have to go through this inspector, and then the inspector's inspector has to come in and look at it and everything. And it's just like, it's hard to, like you said, get it done right there. So you were kind of frustrated with just like, you're watching COVID and happen, and you're like, there's things we can do to help the community. And instead it's just like, no, let's not do that.
Like instead of just being a movie theater closed, and then they were doing events online, but again, that was just a frustration I was building inside myself, in general, and I guess I just like felt like I wanted to do with my life something that is more improving, so be part of society and part of the conversation, improving society. So I was always like, since I was in Rome, that's what I was doing when I was doing engineering. Actually, I started like studying more about politics when I was doing engineering. So I was going to class, but I was reading my own books because at that point, I was not interested anymore in engineering. So I was like either thinking about movies or politics. So I was learning so much. So then when I was in Rome, even there, I was like interested in more doing like political stuff. I was going to a talk show. Actually, Al Gore came one time. I was a few feet from Al Gore. Because there was this we have this political talk show in Italy that they're so popular. So it's like where like there is the host, and then they invite different people that could be journalists, could be politicians. So, but politicians are not so separate from the news media. They get more connected. So like the main politicians that are in government, they still come to this, and everybody gets to talk to them. Like either the newspaper, the journalists, or like could be historians or other people. So there is this conversation that they all yell at each other at a certain point anyway. But that's
the thing that you did with you were on like a panel with Dario Argento.
Oh, that was a different story.
That's a different. Okay.
That's a totally different story. That was another great story. I
love the original Suspiria and the bird with the crystal plumage.
Yeah, that's what was happening. So there was a film festival that they were doing at the Egyptian, So
Okay,
at
that
the
was at
Egyptian,
the Egyptian. Okay.
that was at the Egyptian. Yeah. So that was the film festival, and they were having Dario Argento coming from Italy for that screening.
Wow.
But so because he doesn't like speaking in English, and his
Yeah.
assistant, we don't even know if she was speaking English, but they prefer to speak to them in Italian. So I would translate the emails for them so that they could just send them in Italian and I would translate them back. So I was never a fan of Dario Argento or anything. I don't watch horror movies because that's my
Really?
sister thing. So, because, like that kind of rivalry. So if it's my sister thing, then I cannot watch them.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
yeah, it's like if I watch them, I enjoy them, but I cannot like them just because it's her thing. So
Yeah.
cannot be my thing. But yeah, so then they were having Dario Argento coming, and they were doing this screening of Suspiria, but they wanted to screen the original Italian version of Suspiria, and there was no copy, and it was like print. They want to do 35 millimeter print.
Yeah, that's a hard
So
one to find.
yeah, so they couldn't find one version with the subtitles in it, but they could find the subtitles separately as a SRT file. So, but then you couldn't put them together. You needed someone in the projection booth while the movie was playing on the print, on the digital projector, to play the subtitles on top of the screen. But they were in a PowerPoint file. So, as a PowerPoint, you need someone manually there to sync them with the movie as the movie is playing. So then so then they got me to do that, which it sounds very complicated, but it's actually very simple because it's crazy how the brain instantly can put together what it hears with what sees on the screen. And it's like, okay, now it's time to the next one. So they had me to do that. And
So you're watching Suspiria and you're also hitting the
yeah, like
button on
I'm
the...
syncing the PowerPoint. But before that, before even the screening, so he was coming in person for a conversation, and but he was there for like a few days, and then he wanted to know who was the person speaking Italian. So he asked to meet me, and I didn't really care because I was never a fan or anything. Like I'm happy to meet anyone, but it's not that I was like everybody else. They were all fans of Dario Argento, so they all wanted to talk to him, and they all want to talk to him about their own lives. And then he talked to me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Oh, which sushi place are you going to eat food?" So
And he probably liked that because he's
He
so
loved
tired of
that.
hearing about, Kate, when you were doing Suspiria and, the thing comes down there, did you know it's going to, like, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, he loved that. So he was like, "Oh, are you joining us for dinner and everything?" And then we
Oh, that's
just
so
kept,
cool. So you
and
got
then
to
we
just be
just
like
kept
a
talking.
friend with him. That's awesome. That's
Yeah, right away. And like I was still minding my own business. I was like, he's not gonna care about me anything. And then one time I was on the phone and I see him around like searching for me and was yelling my name. He couldn't see me. I was like, oh, he was looking for me still. And then the day after, I had to do the screenings of Suspiria, obviously. So I couldn't go for dinner with him and the rest of the team because I had to, the screening would not happen without me, obviously. So, and he was like, "You don't even have time for a salad?" And I'm like, well, no, not really. So,
So that's awesome. So you're seeing all this happen, going back to like COVID. You're seeing COVID, you're seeing kind of what's happening, you're frustrated, and now you're seeing what's happening with Cuomo. And that's frustrating you. So
yeah, that's where like, so when I was still at the Egyptian, like I had nothing really to do except like the maintenance and some stuff like that, coordinated with Netflix, whatever they needed for transition and everything. So, but what I was mostly doing was I was like watching press conferences. So like the health department conferences, the mayor of Los Angeles, the governor of California press conferences, so I could update the rest of the company that they would not do this kind of work about like, okay, this is what we can do. They're saying we can open maybe then. These are the rules. I was like going to the NATO, which is the National Association of Theater Owners. It's a different NATO. It's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
said
this.
NATO. It's like, wait, that
Yeah, I was going to NATO from Egyptian theater. Yeah. So, but it's the trade organization that deals with like movie theaters. So they were in touch with governments to talk about the reopening. So I was like going through those meetings they were doing every week. So I was updating the company about all of that. And then because my algorithm at this point was all press conferences, YouTube started suggesting videos of Cuomo, which at this point he was so popular everywhere, but I don't watch television. So Yeah, I don't have a television. I don't like watching television, so like I mainly like learn from whatever it's like my YouTube algorithm, social media.
Yeah.
I'm reading the news, like newspaper and stuff like that. But I didn't know that that was a big thing that everybody loved them during COVID. I just start watching,
Yeah.
and also I'm very disconnected from stuff. Like when everybody likes something, I'm usually the person like I'm not interested. So
So you like to be the contrarian.
yeah. I'm the type of person. So if someone is already super popular, like, yeah, and that thing needs to be really, really good to get me. Like the Harry Potter, I didn't want to watch it because everybody wanted to watch it, but then I ended up watching it and then I loved it. So now I love the Harry Potter. And the same with Lord of the Rings. So like, so
Yeah.
if something is really good, I really love it. Once I watch it, I love it. But I usually tend to postpone the watching it if everybody
So when
else
the media
thinks,
is coming out and they're sending you advertisements, the best movie of the year,
yeah, I'm not
2 million
watching.
people, you're just like, no. That has the
Yeah.
opposite effect. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes that's how I
but
feel. I'm
then when
just like,
everybody hates someone, then I'm like, oh, now I'm interested. Let me see. Well, like there must be something good about this person too. If everybody hates him, I'm like,
like
okay.
when I yeah, like when I watch The Force Awakens and like everybody's cheering and everything, I'm like, this movie sucks.
Listen, I'm a Star Wars fan too, so
Yeah,
well, the original ones, obviously. So
so like when I watch that, I'm just like, really? This is like sometimes I don't know. I'll go to those like premieres and you're with these super fans. It's like anything could flash on the screen and they'd like it, and I just feel like, really, this is what you like this? This isn't good.
yeah.
So yeah,
So, but yeah, then I started
yeah,
watching videos of Cuomo, and I just loved how he was talking about government
yeah,
and like how government is there to make the life of people better. Like his dedication,
yeah,
how he was talking about everything. I just like loved that,
yeah,
and it was just so different than everybody else. So then I was like, oh, maybe that's what I want to do for my life. What he's talking about.
yeah,
Not this, not movie theaters, not the movie industry. Like making movies is great and it's a great way to communicate.
yeah,
But I really want to help other people. I want to do improve things in society. And
yeah.
especially now that there is so much division, especially it was a little less back then, I guess,
Yeah.
but it was
Now
still
it's
like
just
very
gotten worse.
strong. Yeah, now it's
It didn't
worse.
get better, it got worse.
Yeah, so but I was like feeling like, oh, I want to help like people, like even what we were talking before, like improving like the school system, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, like that stuff that excites me, like to learn from different country, learn from the different experiences and put it together to pick whatever works and not pick
You
whatever
remind me of
doesn't.
like James Cameron. James Cameron's making all these movies and then he was like, I really want to go underwater and discover these things because I feel like this is more interesting than what movie making is doing. It really wasn't until I think it was Lord of the Rings that actually brought him back to filmmaking because he was like, okay, now I kind of want to do this again. So you kind of remind me of that, where
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, I've seen this, but it's like, how do we get to like the real heart of things? So
Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.